Hello and welcome back. I'm going to continue our work on our mountain scene. I've started by pre-mixing some colors on the canvas with some Liquitex acrylic gel, matte gel actually, not the glossy stuff. And what I'm just going to start doing is placing color on the canvas using our palette knife. Again, just touching the top. Let's see how this flows. What I have mixed here is a mixture of phthalo blue as well as a little bit of titanium white. This is a bit brighter than I wanted, so I may also mix in some Payne's Gray on top of this. And what I'm really trying to do is just let this flow and fill the canvas and let it gently glide. Look how awesomely thick that is. Again, constantly cleaning my brush and constantly changing things up. So now I'm going to take some of my cadmium red mixture here. I'm going to start at this far corner here. Just begin to spread this up like so. Again, cleaning my palette knife. Then taking some of this orange mixture that I have ready. Again, sliding the knife back and forth in it. And now let's see how these two mix. That kind of really returns back to the burnt sienna more, which is okay. I do have to be mindful not to touch too heavily. I'll let the knife dig in like that as I spread this across. Again, cleaning my knife. And now I'm going to grab some more of a yellowish color. Begin to apply this here across. What I kind of want to have is a nice marbling here. Really letting the paint flow. Now what I think I'm going to do is with my palette knife, I'm going to take some of the blue mixture, clean my knife a little bit, and some of the yellow mixture. Just going to mix this together on the canvas. And now I'm going to take this here. And I really am trying to let myself feel free to experiment here as I pull these colors out. It's a bit greener than I wanted, probably. So what I'll do is then clean my knife off, take some more blue, mix that right on top of the canvas on my palette, and again right back on top to make this a little more blue. What I really want is the effect of a dark sky. Again, take more blue, mixing it on top of that same color. And right back on top, kind of gradually gradiating that out. keeping my knife constantly clean. I'm going to go back to our yellow mixture, I think. Apply some more of that here. Cool. And again, cleaning my knife, taking some red, coming down lower. Gradually trying to spread that up higher into the sky. Pulling down a little bit. Okay, cleaning my palette knife. Taking some more blue by itself. Then pulling this down. I really want to let these areas mix. I'm letting myself be very free with what I create here because I don't want this to be something that I'm married to. This is my first time using a palette knife, first time doing an impasto style painting. So I really want myself to feel like I have the freedom to create as I see fit, without having to worry about happy little accidents or little mistakes here and there. Because again, I can just make more paintings. So I very much view it like baseball, where each painting I make is an at-bat, and the more at-bats I get, the better I'm going to be at making paintings. Every painting you attempt is a good painting. Okay, now I think what I need is a more darker, deeper blue. So I'm going to add some Payne's Gray nearer to my blue. And I'll mix this in. Don't think I need any more matte gel. It's already in the blue color itself. So I'm just going to take that and mix it in a little bit. What I'm going for here is a much more navy bluish color. pull this out some. With this palette knife, what I'm going to do now is just begin to pull down the areas where I want there to be a darker shade. Very good. Now I'm going to clean this knife and go back to my other knife. Now, with this knife is clean, I'm just going to pull this across and let this now darker shade mix in with the others. Do need to remember to clean my knife more frequently. That is why some of these colors are getting mixed in and becoming mud. You can see it there, how it's not a very pleasant color there. I'm also trying to not fall in love with any particular brushstroke. I'm just trying to make sure that I'm getting the hues and brightness that I'm looking for. What I'm trying to do also is get rid of some of this green color. Be ready to have it. Well, I'll have a paper towel, seeing my fingers are already a mess. It really is creating a lot of different interesting shapes on the canvas as I clean and as I scrape through. Gotta remember to clean the knife more. Sorry if I'm not talking too much. I'm really kind of captivated by this. And the way the paint's really just moving on the knife. Really is very interesting. What I'm doing here is carving away from the sky where I think our mountain will be. I'm smoothing out some of this paint, kind of trying to plan ahead. I'm pouring out some pure cad yellow. Some more of our matte gel. Cleaning my palette knife. Mixing that together. And pulling it out a little bit. Now I'm just going to come along here. Okay. Again, cleaning off that knife. And now I want to take my other knife, which I'm getting a little more comfortable with, and begin to spread this toward the deeper, darker blue. And what I want to give the impression of here is a brighter part of the sky as the sun is setting to our left. just like that. And now I'm going to now come back and take the Payne's Gray, and I'm going to do the opposite on the far side. What I want to have the appearance of is a night sky that's slowly creeping from right to left. Trying to let them meet, because if they meet, I might grab some of that yellow color. I don't want that to mix yet. A little more Payne's Gray. Again, moving from right to left. More Payne's Gray. And moving from right to left. See, there we go. See how the second I grab more yellow, it's spread pretty rapidly. So we're going to clean our knife. And we're going to pull that back. And in this area, I probably am going to need to clean my knife quite constantly. I'm actually going to start doing things, rinsing it off in water with my hand. Make sure it gets really clean. Then I'll dry on a paper towel. And now again, from right to left, the added water should also help the paint flow a little more as well, without letting it get too wet. Will also help thin the paint a little bit in case I apply too much matte gel. Oops, a bit too much there, dug a bit too deep down the canvas. I don't really want to hear a scraping sound. A scraping sound means I'm removing paint. I want the palette knife to glide across. It's okay to have a little bit of yellow on the side. So there are some streaks of yellow in here. That's okay. To me, what that's giving the indication of is a nice cloud that's reflecting back some light, which is okay. It's not pitch black. It's just the early evening. As I mix into here, I'm going to have to clean my brush constantly, palette knife constantly. Or at the very least, make sure that I'm only moving from right to left and cleaning before I go back toward the right. Some more Payne's Gray on. Again, from right to left. pausing to, well, let's not see. What I'm also doing is checking the actual color on the palette knife as well. That's not too bad, so I feel okay doing this. See that there? That's a little bit too bright. So I'm going to rinse this again. And just using my fingers to get some of the more heavy duty paint off. Squeeze out this paper towel. Drop it in somewhere else. And I'm going to grab some more Payne's Gray. And I'm just going to do the same again. Moving from right to left. Oh, damn it. Basically what's happening here is the paint on this side of the canvas is a little more dry. So I've been playing a little bit of favorites with the other side. So I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna rinse again. Which is kind of cool because it is giving an effect of it's kind of filling the gaps a little bit. So I think I'm gonna grab some more lighter phthalo blue. Maybe I'll kind of mix those two together a bit on the palette and then start from right about here and fill this in a little bit with some more paint. Too much. Did not clean the knife enough there. So now, again, back to the Payne's Gray. And from right to left. Phthalo blue. In with the Payne's Gray. Letting it marbleize on the palette knife. When it gets stuck, it likely means that's very like this, where it's very flat. You can probably barely see it in the camera, but it's almost completely dry by that time. Back to the Payne's Gray. Not cleaning it nearly enough. And when I do, I'm likely not loading enough paint onto it as well. Oh, that looks really good though. but I can kind of see areas, whoops, where I have excess paint. What I'm trying to do is just drag from areas that have excess paint into areas that don't. Without letting my brush get stuck like that. Palette knife get stuck like that. Cleaned up again. Some more phthalo blue. More than that. Really just trying to make sure this is evenly spread. I want some texture is okay. That's obviously the idea of an impasto painting, to have texture, but I am trying to spread it out just a little bit more, especially on the sky. And as I go, some really interesting shapes are starting to appear. So we kind of have this darker section in this area that I'm really very pleased with. With this kind of transitions, it kind of transitions into this other space here, where we're beginning to see the lighter colors. And then finally on this side, we have even lighter colors. So what I'm going to do is again clean my knife. This is also great because this is the longest my camera's been able to stream so far. So I think the settings I changed are working. I think I need more phthalo blue by itself. So I'm going to pour some more out from the tube. Which means I also need to add in some titanium white. Oops, that's cad yellow. These are the paint. I'm using Winsor Newton Galleria paints, by the way. I love them so far. I think you're able to get a lot of really nice color variation out of them. They spread very well, and I think they're very vibrant. And then finally, what we want to do is just add in some more of our matte gel with the matte gel knife, which I will dry off really quick. This is the exact gel that means if I haven't shown it already. Drying my knife. Well, that probably didn't matter too much. I have to mix the colors in. Trying to not mix in too much of the Payne's Gray, because that's really going to cancel out the titanium white. And now what I'm just going to do is take this and apply it very gently on the left-hand side here. Trying to barely touch the canvas. Cool. That will do that one well. Clean that off. And now I'm going to take our other knife and I'm now going to pull this in a more downward direction. Well, first I think I'm going to pull across from here. And then down. Really trying to let this paint fill in these little gaps here. And just letting that be itself for a minute. Cool. I think I am pleased with the way our sky looks. Although I think what it does need is some yellow, but I'm going to do this differently. And I'm going to be very careful as I do this. So I'm going to grab some of our CAD yellow, pure CAD yellow, with the matte gel. I'm going to come here and I'm going to pull down. And what I'm using this to do is to give an indication, our first indication really, of our ridge line. And by having this sheen here, what I'm hoping it tells your eye is that, hey, this is where our light source is. Trying to make this edge a little bit softer. Letting it go a little bit higher into the painting as I pull it down. Cool. Now, cleaning my brush again to go back to the yellow. Just like that. And again, just going to pull it down just like this. Just gently touching the canvas. Letting the knife decide where it wants things to be. And just kind of filling it in as I go. What I have planned here might be way too complex for my first time around, but I'm going to do my best to keep that going. Um, and I'm really imagining that this side of the painting is much more yellow and orange, whereas this side will be much more blue and green. So now we have that. I'm going to take some of my more deeper orange color and do a very similar thing. Now this is where I have to be really, really bold and make a very big decision. And I think I want the point of that mountain to be right about there. And now what I'm doing here is just really pulling this down, changing my grip a little bit, introducing a little bit of that same shade over here. Letting it touch the blue a little bit so the blue mixes in. Really just letting this pull down, create a very interesting marbleized texture for us. And what I'm almost doing is using the blue of the sky as a reservoir for me. And because I have so much paint on the canvas already, I have lots of interesting colors to pull from and mix from on the canvas. Very good. Now, I'm going to clean my knife off. And the next color I think I'm going to grab is some red. And I want some red right about here, I think. As I go through and pull it more, what it's basically doing is mixing with the blue on the canvas that we have already, and it's kind of softening that red, into a brown. And it's okay to have whoopses. Again, happy little accidents are okay. After I pull this down, I'm probably going to add some more yellow back in to replace that oopsie. But again, happy little accidents are very okay. That is how we're going to have character in the painting. As an artist and as an individual, I frequently struggle with being a perfectionist. So this will help me to make sure that I am holding myself to a free thinking standard. Which again was one of the reasons why I chose to use a palette knife for this work, for this piece. Back to the yellow. Right back in here. And now we replace that in, letting it, letting it do its thing all throughout the ridge that we formed. Now, all of a sudden, this is beginning to come to life. It is incredibly important that I am gentle here. Cool. Now, as we get lower on our ridge, actually, what I should do first is, what I was going to do is begin to fill in lower. But what I should do first is actually begin to do on the right hand side. Now, what I have here is really much more of the burnt sienna-ish color, which is much more red, and I'm just going to start to form the other side of the ridge. Again, similar to the other side, it's probably going to take us multiple layers to get to where we want to go. And we also have a ridge behind our ridge here, so I need to be mindful of that and kind of give an indication for something that's a little more distant here. What I'm really trying to do right now is establish a nice base layer. Yeah, make sure I'm actually streaming right now. Now I'm going to go back to cleaning my brush, well, palette knife. I'll go back to my brighter orange, I think. I'm going to begin to work on this side here a little bit. And again, I'm really trying to let the palette knife dictate form rather than having my eye dictate it. I'm going to go back to more of that orange. Not a lot of it, though, only a little bit, as you can see. And I'm going to begin to try to do the same along our distant ridge here. What I'm really trying to do is just pull some of the paint out and down, being mindful of where I think some of the contours will be. Or at the very least would be. And I think that looks pretty good. I'm not sure how much you can see that but there is a very marbleized texture there, which is really quite interesting and good. Now, what I want to begin doing is building up more paint on the lower part of the ridge. So I'm going to take some more of my burnt sienna type color and load a ton of it on. And I'm just going to start working below. I'm trying to also use my knife to establish the ridge. Do something similar over here. At this point, all I'm really trying to do is get paint on the canvas that I can move around. Trying to not get too close to the top there. Similar over here. What I may do is add some yellow or blue to that in a minute. Let's rinse it off. cleaning the palette knife really is incredibly important. So now, back onto the knife, cleaning off my hand as well. Back into my yellow. Cleaning it off. I think what I need is a green. And I'm just mixing up something on my palette right now. Yeah, this is a much more reddish green. Now that I have that established, what I can do is go back to my orange or my yellow and reestablish where our ridge is going to be. This is probably a little bit too bright, but that's okay, because now I can at least begin to have a highlight that the rest of my paint can stick to and marbleize off of, which is what I think I was missing on this side of the painting a minute ago. I'm going to clean my palette. And now what I'm going to try to do is smooth back the other way. Cool, that's starting to look a lot better. Now the next challenge is I've established this line, I think. I've established this area. I need to establish this one, which is what's going to draw the eye toward the bright spot. This is probably going to be the most challenging part because I'm going to need to put indications kind of moving in this direction and pull them to the opposite sides. So no time like the present. And I need more paper towels. Let's dunk that in there. And I'm going to put out some phthalo green to do this. I'm going to put the phthalo green relatively near our Payne's gray. Since this is our first time using the phthalo green, I'm going to mix in some of the matte gel in a minute. I think I also do want more Payne's gray as well. And what I'm going to focus on is this right side first. It seems to be like the right side is harder for me. What I'm doing first is mixing in the Payne's gray with our gel. grabbing as clean paper towel as I can. Actually, what I'll do first is I'll put this. We'll use it and we'll put it on the canvas. We'll put it here. Just let it gently make its way up to the mountaintop. Cool, and then we'll do the same. Kind it down in this direction. Wonderful. Rinsing that off in the water. Also washing my hand a little bit in my bowl. Cool. Now I will mix some of our phthalo green with the gel. Cool. And okay, I'm just trying to get it some of it on the canvas in areas where we're going to need it. Awesome. Now, wiping down my brush, cleaning it again, rinsing it because there was quite a lot of paint on that go. Rinsing my hand as well. One of the beautiful parts of acrylic paint is it kind of comes right off once it's dry. Lift these rub your fingers together a little bit, it's perfect. Cool. Now, clean, dry knife. Working my way from my mountaintop here. Yes, look at that. Look at that. Now we have a clearly defined terminus there. And another clearly defined little ridge that'll nicely sit behind what we've already painted in. And it's creating a nice little shadow effect for us. I'm going to pull some of this paint out. That's not supposed to be up like that. We'll fix that a little bit. That should really be more like down here. So I should put indication for where that should be going. Get a little breathing room. And move that down to here. There. Ooh, I'm going to clean this off while I try to find some space on this paper towel. I'm going to come back in here and try to scrape away this a little more, reform that line that we had, and let this greener shade cut its way down. A little bit of orange and green there. A little bit of more burnt sienna, just a little bit. Back to more yellow, which may have dried out a bit too much. So I think what I want to do then is take some red work that into here a little bit. Just keep working it down. Cool. All right. Just going to keep pulling this down. Evening some of these paint ridges out, just not fully, just a little bit. Just to make sure that that's not overriding the color. Texture will help us to give the impression of contours, but I still want to make sure that I have some degree of highlights. Now, I need some orange, and I'm just going to follow along here. With that orange, I'm going to pull it down and let it mix and marbleize with our phthalo green. Again, I'm not trying to be married to any particular shape or any particular brush stroke, or I guess knife stroke. I'm just trying to let the shape of the mountain come up over time. And as these different layers of paint dry, they'll get more solidified and the texture will get more apparent. Like this right now is looking pretty good. And if you agree, please go ahead and leave a comment. See, what happened there was I applied way too much pressure, and the knife actually scraped away all of the paint down to the underpainting. You kind of see that spot there now where it's kind of exposed. So just to fix that, all I'm going to do is apply more paint. That's why it's very important to apply a very light pressure. Sometimes it's really hard as I want to work really fast and I want to spread and make the image appear as fast as I can. My brain's working much faster than my hand can. Trying to also be mindful of the exact contours I want. So here we have this ridge. That means the contours are falling this way. So it's very important that I move in that motion as I go through. Cool. Now, let's rinse this thing off. As well as my hand. Cool. I'm going to grab another paper towel. What I'm also pausing to do is think about what my next step in the painting might be. Drying off my hand a bit. And you can kind of see how the latex of the acrylic kind of builds up. Just going to peel that off as well. A little dish soap though, it'll all come right off. So I think I need more cad yellow. So I'm going to pour out some of that. Boom, oops. Sorry, wireless mic was right next to the paint. What's interesting here is there are so many colors on this palette now that as I'm mixing through, the colors are being less and less pure, which is actually a good thing because it's helping me be more muted as I shift into the foreground. So you can see the kind of cad yellow I'm mixing up here is really becoming a much more rich gold as it mixes into the other colors that are below it. Now, on the palette knife, again, I'm just going to gently, lightly touch where I think indications of light should be. Definitely more up here. Cool. Now, I'm going to rinse that off. And put it aside. Grabbing another paper towel for me to dry my hands. And what I'm going to do is grab my nice and clean palette knife and just start to pull down, starting from here. What I'm also trying to do is trying to remove paint from spots where I feel like there would be more shadow and move it lower on our mountainside. Trying to very carefully break up some of the texture that I have in here and pull it down onto the rest of the ridge, and down and out like that. Then reestablish where we are. Yes, very good. Now I'm going to clean my brush off. Take some more of our new gold color, right in where we were. Just really, very gently pull it down. Without taking too much paint off the canvas. Again, I am starting mindful of contours here as I pull this paint down. What I'm imagining is maybe this little guy here is the nub of a ridge. And from this side, we have kind of a flattish area, which then drops off again. Cool, very good. Now, cleaning the brush, we're going to rinse it. back into our forest green. Sorry, phthalo green. And I'm going to try to stay away from the mountaintop itself. And I'm just going to begin to indicate where our ridge is on this side, which is going to fall off pretty steeply. So the viewer is not really going to see much of it. I can see myself taking too much from the main mountain, so I'm cleaning my palette knife. And I'm just going to pull this down again. Nope. Clean the knife again. I'm going to grab more gold. Ooh, that was way too much. That's okay. This is how we learn. And I'm going to keep pulling this down and evening it out, mixing it in with the green that's now underneath it. Cleaning my knife again. And I'm going to try to very gently work my way in here. Sorry if my shoulder's in the way, I'm leaning in very close. See, this is a great example of a happy accident, because what I've now done is established a bit of a warm side and a cool side, whereas this side of this little indication here is much cooler than its compatriot. Using much more careful, much more deliberate strokes now. Again, really trying to let this paint work and form a lot of that marbleization. Now, I think what I want to do is take a very small dab of forest green, phthalo green, just on the tip. Just on the tip. I'm mixing our phthalo green and our gold a little bit. And I have some on the tip. Let's see how this looks. I think what it probably needs is if we go back into our orange and mix that in. Yeah. Yep. Back into our gold again. I'm just trying to mix these colors very locally as I bring them down. This new ridgeline that I'm trying to form here. what I was doing there was testing about how dry the paint was. That area of the sky is the oldest part of the painting, so if anything was dry, it'd be that, and it is pretty much dry. It's a bit tacky, but it's very much so dry. So what's telling me is kind of, hey, Mark, pick up the pacing a little bit. So back in just a little bit on the tip. Because what I need to at least do in this sitting is finish this background section, the upper part of the painting here. Just going to keep going through, letting this blend very locally. And again, I think this is coming along really well for my first time ever using a palette knife, and really only my 5th ever acrylic painting. Sorry, I can't see chat. Cool. Just going to keep working this through, kind of adding in paint very gently and lightly, and very methodically. Apologize if I'm not talking very much again, because I really am very much just trying to be very present in what I'm doing with the paint. And again, back in over here. Just working our way down. Trying to be very mindful about what I am doing and how much paint on the knife. Just continuing to pull this out. Actually, I have technology. There you go. That should give them more detail. And back to my golden color. Okay, that's coming along really nicely. I need more paper towels. Now, let me just kind of continue to work some of this paint further down. And I think the next thing I'm going to do is take some of this bluish brown that I made and just begin to work this in here like so. Really is awesome how all these lines are kind of all going up that same mountain peak. Just pulling the paint down somewhat. Cool. Now, back to yield and paper towelies. And I'm going to grab I'm going to take some of our gold. And I'm going to mix that with Payne's Gray, which unfortunately may be starting to dry a little bit. Mix that up over here so that I have kind of that appearance. And I'm just going to go in from much lower on the painting and start this right here. I really want this to be one of the darkest areas of the painting. Kind of climbing up in there. Basically, I'm using the canvas to clean the palette knife a little bit. Back into the same color I just created. Like so. Very good. Cool. Now, again, cleaning off on the canvas. Back into our kind of bluish orangey color, like so. And I'm just gonna make another ridge. Just like that. Clean that off on the canvas, then on paper towel. Just gonna blend that a little bit. And I'm gonna take some of our orange right about there. Yeah, look at that. That looks very cool. So occasionally I am glancing up to watch the Rams absolutely put it to the Cardinals. Not I'm a fan of either team, but happens to be on the TV in front of me. That is dry. Cool. Now, what else do we want to do here? So let's go back into our Payne's Gray. Mixed in a little more of that. A little more of our gold. As we mix Payne's Gray, which is really a blue, with that gold color, what's coming out is a very golden greenish color. And as I'm moving forward in the painting, I'm trying to be mindful of letting the lower chroma Payne's Gray get mixed in more and more frequently. You can really see how thick it is too. Like I can almost get my palette knife under that. How thick the paint is. And what I'm kind of seeing here, which is interesting, is some indications of a foreground where we have some trees starting to take hold. Where the eyes begin to see something more than just our mountain. Yeah. And I'm doing this purely by changing the way that I'm using my knife. I continue to clean it off on the canvas. Go back into that same color. More Payne's Gray. More gold. Mix that all up. Pull it out some. And I'm just going to let this be. That's really way too much. Our foreground's starting to take hold. rinse it. Also taking a step back to look at what we have so far and where I am in the painting. I think what I want to do now is take more, pretty much the rest of the paint's gray, and a large swath of gold and some red. Just use that additional little bit of color to add some more variation in here. Now what I'm doing here as well is just smoothing out some of this. I'm going to plan to put in even more foreground, because really these trees that I'm stamping in now are really part of the midground, not the foreground. And now what I'm going to do, I think, is take some of our gold color, some more of our green, more of the gold, more of the green, mix that up. Maybe some of our darker color as well. Mix that up. And what I want to really do here is, and ignore the glop on the front, is just begin to get some indication of color. It's amazing how something that I put there just as a way to get rid of some of the excess paint that I have on top of the palette is now becoming a way for me to put a little texture on this foreground. Now I need a dry brush because I do need to take rid of some of the excess paint over here. And really begin to lighten it up. This is really not the right color for this, but I'm going to try my best to make it work. What's happening there is I didn't really like what I was doing, and I decided to go over it. And just by changing the direction of my knife, I was able to do that. What I'm really trying to do here is just give the top of the trees a little bit of a highlight so that they appear to have... Whoa, way too much. That's okay. I'll just go back to it like that. And so that there appears to be sun shining in from here, lighting up this middle section of the painting here. Now in the area where I just applied too much, what we need to do is kind of go back with my darker color. And just apply some more to layer it a bit deeper. Cool. All right, now I need burnt sienna. And what I'm going to begin to do is just indicate where the base of our little hill is. Trying to just give the indication that we have some terrain here, that this is kind of a little bit of a trail we would follow to get to the mountaintop, way off in the distance. Okay, do kind of the same over here. Grab some more of it, just like that. Letting it blend with the forest green beneath it. Phthalo green beneath it. Cool. Now, what do we need? Just jam my fingers in a very gross paper towel. I thought it was dry, it was not. And I'm just going to keep drying this. What color do I want next? I think I want some of our gold and some of our phthalo green. More gold. Mixing that up with my knife. And I'm going to come right in here. Just begin to make this a little more complex. Just trying to give an indication of like some bushes or something living in here. Sorry if I step on the camera. Didn't mean to cause an earthquake. Or if my leg was shaking again for that matter. And really just experimenting and letting my knife make my decisions for me. Very cool. Now, we've kind of basically decided that the dirt is that kind of brownish color. So, just gonna grab more of that. And just kind of scrape this in. Like so. Let's grab some of our gold, just a little bit. Back to our orange. Make a little bit of a transition here as well. I'm using my gold here to establish where that forest floor is. And kind of using that to imagine where a little dirt path would be. With these strokes, I'm trying to start lower in the field so that I'm not accidentally putting too much paint too high and removing that sense of depth that I've established, or at least I'm trying to establish. And as I put more shadow over those highlights, I create even more depth. Let's just round that in there like that. Yes. What I'm doing here is establishing a dark color for a highlight to pick onto. Before I do that, though, I want to establish this. Cool. All right, let's come back in. I don't have a lot of paint there. We'll use this. In fact, that actually looks better. So I think we are almost done here. But what I do want to do is continue to just add just a little bit more color to the foreground. Palette knife is very dirty and I didn't bother. And now I kind of want to also make sure that I'm being very careful to delineate where our little path is. I'll apply this over here. Cool. All right. Sorry for jostling the camera just then. way too much paint. Way too much paint. That's fine. It's always fine. Cool. I think we are almost good to call this one done. I really do just want to give that path a little more definition. I'm not quite sure how to do it. Or at the very least to call this phase of this one done. And all I'm really trying to do is just swirl around some of these shapes and see if I can make something interesting. Just mixing up one final color here. Just something to help us establish the foreground a little more. Okay, cool. I'm going to call this stream there. I hope you enjoyed it. I definitely did. Again, this is my first impasto painting, so I'll see how this looks when it dries. I assume it's going to take some time to dry, but we may add some more glazes on later on. If I do, I will come back online and show it to you. Have a good evening.